Man, oh man, I gotta say, sometimes players' choices, particularly in free agency, really leave me scratching my head. Just seeing where some guys choose to go, I don't know, it gets you thinking about what's really happening behind the scenes to make them make such an interesting choice. Even with just 30 destinations and fewer realistic landing places, for most players, NFL free agency is still a rather complex process. NFL rosters have a lot of moving pieces, and with timing being at a premium, it can be challenging for NFL teams and players alike to find the right match. And every single year, this one being no exception, we see instances of players signing in the wrong city.
It sure is weird around here.
The implications of this mistake can be financial, have negative impacts on their career, or otherwise. But the bottom line is, they, or their agent, really screwed up. So today, let's take a look at this year's crop of free agents and see who dropped the ball and where they should have gone instead. Starting off with an obvious one. Now former Kansas City Chiefs defensive tackle Orlando Brown Jr. Far be it from me to project my unrequited dreams of Super Bowl glory, but I simply cannot imagine playing in that Andy Reid offense with guys like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the rest of that dynamic Chiefs crew, and then deciding to just go elsewhere. Especially right after winning a ring with that very group. In his defense, the quarterback and offense that he joined in Cincinnati are no slouches. And he did get a nice 4-year, $64 million contract to wear the Bengals stripes next year. And I suppose as a former third-round pick who didn't come into the league with a huge paycheck or anything like that, you kinda have to follow the money. Especially if it leads to another good opportunity to win some games. Now, what confuses me though, is the fact that Brown reportedly left because the two sides couldn't agree on a long-term contract. All but taking that out of play. Yet Kansas City ended up dropping $80 million over 4 years on former Jaguars tackle Jawan Taylor instead of Brown, who had earned Pro Bowl honors in each of his 2 years in KC. Look, I don't know what happened between the two sides during Brown's negotiations. It could have been a chipped ego or perhaps concerns around his long-term prospects. But you know, it really seems like all things considered, it would have been best, not just for Brown, but also for the Chiefs, to have found a way to get a deal done to bring the dynamic mountain of offensive tackle back into the fold as they seek to defend their title in 2023. On the other side of the trench, to the defensive side of the ball. Well, there are a couple of big-name guys like Draymond Jones and Arden Key, who made some very questionable decisions on where to continue their playing careers by signing with the Seattle Seahawks and Tennessee Titans, respectively. Starting off with the former, Jones was one of the more consistent producers for the Broncos since making the shift from defensive tackle to the edge in 2020, having recorded at least 5.5 sacks and 7 tackles for a loss. But he hasn't exactly been content with the state of affairs in Denver for some time now. And apparently, Seattle initially wanted him included in the Russell Wilson trade, and he was peeved that Denver refused to move him. I mean, shit, they should have just traded me from the jump. I was included in the trade. Denver said no. Denver didn't pay me my proper respects, so I'm here because Seattle respected me from the jump. Well, Draymond, be careful what you wish for, because I'm not convinced that signing with Seattle will bring the satisfaction that you seem to think. The Seahawks seem poised for a major regression this year, having punched well above their weight during the 2022 season. I would have really liked to see him join a team that projects to be on the upswing like the Cleveland Browns. He could have stepped right into the void that Jadeveon Clowney left and thrived in a pass-rushing role across from Myles Garrett. Key, on the other hand, well, he was coming off a bounce-back campaign in Duval, where he seemed to have been finding his groove, playing in all 17 games and recording 4.5 sacks and 27 tackles. But instead of continuing to develop on that talented young upstart Jaguars team, Key decided to follow the dollar signs and ink a 3-year deal worth $21 million to join the Tennessee Titans, a team that, by all indications, is heading in the wrong direction. I understand why the 27-year-old outside linebacker wanted to capitalize, but it would have been great to see what he could have done in 2023 on a legitimate contender like, say, the Minnesota Vikings, who really could have used a player like Arden Key to surveil the middle of the field and try to get after the opposing quarterback. But instead, he's doing a lowly AFC South shuffle, and one that looks to be a downgrade to the naked eye, too. Closing out the crop of defensive players, former Pro Bowl cornerback Patrick Peterson made a rather let's call it, interesting decision to ink a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers after what was a really strong 2022 campaign, during which he tied for second league-wide in interceptions. Peterson is getting up there in years now, as this will be his age 33 season. And considering he's accomplished just about everything you could in this league, other than winning a Super Bowl, I would have liked to see him join an actual contender, even if it was in a secondary role. Peterson has been such a stud his entire career, and man, he truly deserves a ring. And let's face it, that just isn't happening in Pittsburgh. Not anytime soon, at least. It would have been really interesting to see how he fit into a contending roster like the Cincinnati Bengals, who could potentially use some added firepower in the defensive backfield. But instead, he took a 2-year deal in Pittsburgh, where it's going to be Kenny Pickett's first full season as the starter. You know, provided that he can actually stay healthy. The reality is that making the playoffs alone would be a huge accomplishment for that young roster. Sticking in the AFC North, how about Odell Beckham Jr.'s decision to sign with the Baltimore Ravens? I know that this one had a lot of people excited, thinking about the possibility of an OBJ revitalization through him linking with Lamar Jackson, but honestly, I don't think that was the best landing place for him. For all the potential that there is in Baltimore, there's also a lot of turmoil. I mean, so much so that there is still a realistic chance that Lamar isn't the Ravens QB come the start of the season. And even if he is, between his, let's say, fickle health and Beckham's, I would be shocked to see the two of them on the field together for more than 12 games this year. And 12 might be bullish. Lamar himself has played just 12 games each of the last 2 seasons. And LBJ, who by the way is turning 31 this year, missed the entirety of the 2022 season with an ACL tear. Beyond the injuries, Odell has been gasoline to the fire wherever he's gone, for better or for worse. When the culture is strong and the team is good, he can take them over the top, like he did for the Rams in 2021. But when he's bad, he disengages and brings all sorts of drama, which I could easily see being the case in Baltimore this upcoming season. To me, he would have been a much better fit in New York, potentially with Aaron Rodgers and the new-look Jets. Rodgers' game is a much better fit for the way Odell plays. I can just picture him streaking across the middle of the field, Rodgers hitting him in stride, and OBJ breaking off a huge catch and run like it's 2015 all over again. And plus, you know, he has the familiarity with the city and all that. I don't know, it just seems like a way better fit, all things considered. Jacoby Myers and Robert Woods are 2 other high-profile wide receivers who I think might have overthought their free agency process. Myers is leaving what, at least to me, is still a desirable situation in New England, where Bill Belichick, Mac Jones, and co. are going to be determined to prove that they can hack it in the post-Tom Brady era, and that Matt Patricia and Joe Judge were the issue with the offense last year. And in doing so, he's headed out to Sin City to reunite with another controversial Patriots offensive mind in Josh McDaniels. I don't know about you, but if I were Myers, it would be Belichick, not McDaniels, that I'd be staking my future to. And if he was so sure he was ready to get out of New England, Myers would have been a great fit in Buffalo to run routes with Josh Allen alongside Stephon Diggs. His playstyle would have complemented Diggs very well, and it would have created a great opportunity to really stick it to the organization that he seems to have been sick and tired of. Woods, on the other hand, well, at this point in his career, he isn't quite in as high of demand as he might have been a few years back. But I still don't know if it was time for him to abandon any and all playoff hopes by signing with the Texans. He would have been a really nice complimentary piece in Chicago, where they are quietly building an exciting young offensive core. There would be little pressure on Woods to perform behind guys like DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney. Instead, he'd serve more so as a positive influence and a sort of mentor in the locker room. And while this Bears team doesn't look poised for a Super Bowl run, I mean, he would at least have a puncher's chance at making the playoffs. And then, anything can happen. Speaking of the Bears, I would have really liked to have seen Miles Sanders sign with the Bears too. His ability to make plays in open space, catch passes out of the backfield, and tote the rock on a fairly consistent basis would have been really valuable in the Windy City, as the Bears try to build around Justin Fields. Chicago is at least trying to fill the need by bringing in Dante Foreman, but they would have really benefited from a player of Sanders' caliber. On the other side of that same coin, Miles Sanders, unfortunately, will have to learn the hard way just how miserable it can be to play for one of the league's bottom feeder organizations, since he decided to sign with the Panthers down in Carolina. Sticking in the NFC South, I'm still a little bit puzzled as to why the heck Derek Carr elected to sign with the New Orleans Saints. Yes, they are a somewhat stable organization, or at least they have been since the Mickey Loomis regime came into town. But let's face it, this is not the Drew Brees, Sean Payton Saints. Not even close. Sure, they have talented players still, like Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara, but I'm not exactly sold that they were just a quarterback away. I think it would have been more interesting to see him join up with their NFC South neighbors, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, instead, and slot into Brady's spot with all those elite pass catchers around him. As we saw from what he did for Johnny Manziel during his A&M days, Mike Evans can really elevate a quarterback's play with his ability to rise up and catch the ball in traffic. Obviously, the Bucs team was far from perfect in 2022, but with just a few key additions to the O-line and on the defensive side of the ball, I really think that Carr could have revitalized that team. Because, let's face it, Brady looked old last year. And last but not least, we have Dalton Schultz, who seems to have decided to be rebelling against both Jerry Jones and his once apparent fate of being this generation's Jason Witten. Schultz seems to like Texas plenty good enough, as he's staying in state and signing with the Houston Texans. I honestly don't know what is drawing all these pass catchers out to H-Town either. All I know is that if I'm Schultz, I think I head to the Rocky Mountain region to try and take part of the revitalization of Russell Wilson. Sean Payton may not have a reputation for being a fun and easy guy, but he can coach offensive football, and Schultz could conceivably play a similar role to what Jimmy Graham did for those 2010 Saints teams. But which of the top free agents from the 2023 NFL offseason do you think screwed up the most? Where do you think they should have gone instead? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.